Welcome back, and this is part 2, where we carry on the timeline of how plants developed. Back to the plants, or plant-like things. So mosses. Mosses are probably the first things that we think of like as plants because they're green. Along with that group, we've got liverworts, hornworts, and things like that. They have no true roots. Although you pick up a bit of moss, you think it's got roots. No, it hasn't. It's got little tentacles that go down into the soil, but they're not true roots. So out of that group there, you probably might know sphagnum moss. That's moss that is used in planting baskets, and it's used to keep moisture in there. Now, moisture is important for all these plants because they all have to be close to moisture to grow. They need moisture, so therefore most of this life that's happening is happening in the oceans, it's happening in the water bodies. After the mosses, we have the ferns. And the ferns happened about 360 million years ago. That's probably where we get the true roots that are happening. And we get leaves forming, which are called fronds. And they've got stems. And at the same time, we've got amphibians happening on land. So this is the animals that are sort of now going from this water to the land, making the big advance to land. So it's the same thing. Plants are sort of making that big advance towards the land on the edges of the ocean and where the land meets the ocean. And in that group of ferns, we've got things like the tree ferns. We've got cyatheas, which are the black pungers. We've got just things like ladder ferns and small ferns, different types of ferns in that group. This is the start where we get seeds. We're no longer in spores anymore. We've got seeds. Seeds produced with cones. So we've got a male cone and a female cone. The male cone produces the pollen, and the pollen drifts off by the wind to the female cone, and they produce seeds, and then the seeds can be transported, and they move. Off they go, and they move further inland, so spreading. This is when you start to get the forests developing on the planet. So some notable conifers, things like the pine, things like the Norfolk Island pine, spruces, cypresses. These are all conifer types, cone producing, and they're classified as gymnosperms. This is the seed producing plants, gymnosperms, and gymnosperms produce naked seeds. So they're not sort of surrounded by a fruit. So it's not quite as good as we're going to get to later, but there's other gymnosperms that are worthy of mentioning. Cycads. So cycad is, you might know as sago palm. Now it's got the word in the common name, palm, but in actual fact it's a gymnosperm. It produces a cone. It has leaf fronds, root stems, looks like a palm, but it's not. It's a part of the gymnosperms. And this is when they're looking back at identification, they're looking at the sort of the parts that the parts that are producing the seeds and things like that to determine where this plant belongs. And then moving on from there, we've got the ginkgo. It's another plant that doesn't look like a conifer. It looks just like a normal kind of it's like an oak tree, but it's got leaves, roots, and stems. And it also, the female on this, you have male and female trees. The female tree produces a seed and a kind of fruit by the seed or around the seed a little bit, and that's what's useful for birds to come in and then get the bird to move the seed further afield inland. Of course, a lot of this is about trying to get, we've moved from the water, close by the water, to getting further and further inland and more kind of adapting to those conditions further inland. So that's about 270 million years ago for the ginkgo. And it's about 200 million years ago we've got on the animal line, we've got the mammals appearing. The next part is in part 3, and that is the angiosperms, the flowering plants. These are the plants that now dominate the world we live in.